back to another episode of Scandal Queens. It is me, your host, EB, the de-influencer you love or love to hate, and I am back once more to wrap up another deep dive. This one on one of America's most notorious and scandalous television families. That's right, the Duggars. We went through the history of the Duggars last time, strange as it is, and we kind of laid out all of their wild, wacky antics and their sometimes hard to understand past. And we even went into the worst of it, right? Two predators, both hiding right within the ranks of the supposedly loving family. But how did the Duggars go from a seemingly silly yet normal, relatively normal Christian family? Because remember in the beginning, they were using birth control. They waited to have children because they weren't financially stable, yada, yada, yada. How did they go from that to something out of a Little House on the Prairie nightmare? Well, the Duggars didn't create a predator breeding environment all on their own out of nowhere. They were coached into it. They were led into it, downright seduced into it, in my personal opinion, by an organization that had been honing its skills for pretty much a couple of decades by the time they got their claws into the Duggars, and the Duggars traipsed across your TV screens. The IBLP, a truly sinister fundamentalist organization, a powerhouse in the evangelical world that, shock surprise, has a lot of ties into the people, places, and things that we have already been talking about in previous episodes. This is the real power behind the Duggars. It's not God. This organization is the real rot behind everything that's happened in the Duggars. And that's what we're going to be talking about today to wrap up this series on the Duggar family. The Duggars, the IBLP, and the evangelical force that is working hard to undermine the fabric of a compassionate and rational society. It's all a part of the bigger web that we've been spinning over the last couple of weeks. You guys have been going down this rabbit hole with me. This is, surprise, surprise, it's just another piece of the pie. And we're going to just keep exposing it together here in this episode today. But first, let's do a quick temperature check and see what the rest of Hollywood is up to. Right off the top, hallelujah, pass the gravy. Clive Davis is dead. What a victory. For those who don't already know by this point, by the time you hear this, that's right. In a truly devastating turn of events for Diddy's future post-prison music career, the infamous music mogul and gatekeeper Clive Davis has died at a whoppingly young 94 years old. Now, most people will know Clive Davis from his ties to Whitney Houston, Brandy, and a slew of other music giants. But those who listen to my past Kardashians episode, most likely, I hope, remember him for his disgraced connections at CBS-owned Columbia Records. See, back in the 70s, Davis was fired as the head of Columbia in 1973 specifically, amid a spiraling mafia drug trafficking controversy. Essentially, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs went in. They were investigating what was essentially just supposed to be this big payola scheme. And they found out that the mob was really deep in bed with all these different record labels, Columbia biggest among them. Specifically, they went into Columbia and found that Pasquale Falcone, who we mentioned in the past Kardashians episode, who was a known mobster, was sharing an office with one of the big promotions men that had an executive office in Columbia Records. Pasquale Falcone just happened to be sharing an office with him and just happened to be involved in the payola scams and drug trafficking. So Davis at the time, Clive Davis, denied any knowledge of the mobster working in the offices that he also worked in, the company that he was the head of. But he eventually got fired anyway because CBS launched a big investigation and they discovered tax evasion and signs of financial corruption. So Clive Davis was out, disgraced, but Davis would go on, of course, to form Bad Boy Records with Diddy in 93 and was the alleged mentor that taught Diddy everything he knew about throwing drug-fueled parties that he could then blackmail people with. So, there's so much more you can stick to Clive Davis. Good riddance to bad trash. I'll do an episode on him on one day. I intended to do one on him immediately after the Kardashians, but it was so heavy. I just was like, I can't do this. I can't. I would literally rather go down a rabbit hole with like Manson and LSD and the CIA and then get into Clive Davis now. So I'll just save him for the end of the year. But hey, wouldn't you know it, now he's gone and died. So if you really want to know more about him, go check out Melanie Carlson's Substack, which I've talked about on here before, that Mystifying. He comes up in her Kardashian and conservatorship research. So it's really, really fascinating stuff. She goes into much deeper waters than I'm going to go with him here. So, but yeah, Clive Davis, good riddance to bad trash. Rest in piss. Timothy and Kylie have been spotted in the Hamptons. This is not going to be the story that you think it's going to be. Timothy Chalamet and Kylie Jenner were spotted in the Hamptons, took a bunch of photos of them. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because, oh my God, they have a magical ability to make everything look so cheap and trashy. I think that this is the final death knell for the Hamptons. Again, what did I just say? Good riddance to bad trash. You know how how like racist white people see minorities moving in as like the value of a neighborhood going down? Well, I think it's actually the same with car Jenners and the men who associate with them, like the whole clans as a whole. When they move into an area, I feel like the property value goes down immediately. It's like the neighborhood becomes a Fashion Nova warehouse somehow. I don't know how to explain it. You can go and look at the pictures if you want. I don't really recommend it. Don't give them the time of day. If you do want to look up the pictures, go and look from like some obscure, weird, like social media page that for sure is run just by some nerd and that's not getting paid by these people because they're not important enough. But yeah, I was shocked. It's like, I mean, the Hamptons were already going downhill into just basically, they have been for probably a decade, just overpriced reality TV influencer crap. Like this whole idea of it being society and like the Kennedys and stuff is just overrated now. It's just a bunch of rental houses and influencers. So somehow still even that, like Kylie Jenner walking down the street, Timothy Chalamet walking down the street, the two of them, either one of them solo, still makes it look so cheap. And it's really it's crazy. It's really crazy because the clothes on their backs were probably worth thousands. They probably spent thousands to be there, and yet somehow in the world, like they're still warping it into like the trailer park I grew up in as a kid around them, right? Like it looked trashy. They look trashy. I'm sure they acted trashy. I imagine their food and drink orders read like a McDonald's menu. So yeah, rest in peace, Hamptons. I look forward to your next Kardashian endorsed reincarnation as New England's biggest Walmart. Jack White is getting divorced again. That's right. The somewhat mysterious Jack White. I think he thinks he's more mysterious than he is. Jack White is on the divorce path again. Yes, for the third time this time. Olivia Dean, Jack's current and third wife, filed for divorce from Jack on June 3rd. And what's interesting is that she cited inappropriate marital conduct. Now, there aren't really any more details than that. And that actually, that kind of filing is pretty typical. That doesn't necessarily mean that he like ate a kid or anything like that. But it does make you wonder because like, what is the inappropriate marriage conduct? Just if you're being nosy, I'm guessing from his track record that it's probably a fidelity issue. 3 wives, it's probably a fidelity issue. Whatever's going on, you have to admit that Jack's the common denominator in all 3 of these divorces at this point. Like when one person has that many divorces, like let's go and look at his ex-wives. Let's see if they have as many divorces behind them. And his 2 previous marriages, of course, were to Meg White, who was the one you probably knew him with. And this third one kind of reminds me of her, which is kind of eerie, weary. And the second one was Karen Elson. But, with all this wife flipping combined with a friendship with Johnny Depp, it makes one wonder. Okay. It makes one wonder. That's all that I'll say for myself. Olivia has requested spousal support in her June 3rd divorce filing and says that she is completely reliant on Jack and his income for bills. It is a pretty confident filing, I will say, to file, announce, and then also say, and you will be paying my bills all in the same thing. Pretty ballsy, which speaks to the fact that he probably has fucked up pretty bad and does that not want that to come out. So she will probably get paid. Who knows? Who knows? It looks like it's going to cost him a pretty penny. He might want to just, knock it off with the marriages. I don't get that. It's like, why won't these rock stars just go to therapy or stop getting married? It's very simple. Just don't get married. If you want to fuck around, don't get married. It's like truly a wild phenomenon. So I guess we'll see how this plays out. And, ladies, your chance, you could be lucky wife number 4 and then maybe number 5. I don't know how many he queues up. So, maybe 3 of you just go ahead and get in there. All right, it is that time. The Duggars. We know who they are as a family now, but how did they get that way? How did they end up with 2 predators? How did they get so twisted? What is the force behind them that's moved them not only to the top of television rankings before they got canceled, but into the American political arena as well? Not just one of them. There's more than one of them involved in politics. Because remember, Jim Bob isn't just an oafish TV father. He was a state representative for a time, and he ran 2 failed campaigns for the national political stage as well. We also have his sons who have been involved in local campaigns, in state campaigns, and in lobbying groups at a national level. Okay. That's not something that happens in a vacuum. And neither is cultivating the kind of strange fundamentalist beliefs that the Duggars have showcased to the world for years. There is a reason that the Duggars are the way they are. There's a reason that they raised at least 2 men so far who have become predators to children. And that reason is the obscure, elusive, fundamentalist organization, the Institute for Basic Life Principles, or the IBLP, an evangelical collective with ties to some of the darkest and strangest corners of the right-wing Christian world. So let's do it. Let's dig under the skin of the Duggars and see how they came to be what they came to be through the organization that is behind the core of their beliefs and their behaviors, the Institute of Basic Life Principles. The IBLP was started in 1961 by a charismatic young man named Bill Gothard. Bill Gothard earned his master's degree in Christian education that year, right as political counterculture on American campuses exploded. Seeing the wave of new thought and revolutionary demands, Bill Gothard decided that what students really needed was not change, was not America that had a more equitable future to them. No. What they needed was a direct pathway to God as he understood God, and he sought to provide that pathway. So, Campus Teams was founded in 1961 as the first variation of the IBLP. It was initially a religious mentoring group for youth who Gothard claimed having their minds and their hearts twisted by all the evils of, a civil rights movement and an equal rights bill. Bill Gothard wasn't the only one who thought it was time to get fundamentalism back on American campuses during this time either. As you'll know from my Lou Taylor and Kardashians bonus episode, there was a lot of targeted movement coming from the religious right in America in the 1960s. Movement that was specifically funded by the Kardashian-linked Full Gospel Businessman's Fellowship International. And if you want to know more about that, head to Patreon and you can listen to that deep dive bonus episode. There were a number of evangelical campus outreach groups that were formed during this time, which I find to be very coincidental and very interesting. Most significantly, a group called Campus Crusade. Awfully close name, huh? And that group was started by Bill Bright. Now, Campus Crusade, which was, other than being a multi-million-dollar organization by the 1960s, was a student organization that focused on evangelical teachings, but these specifically of the teacher, as they all referred to her, Helen Mears. They became hugely powerful by the 1960s, and they spread their, what was called at the time, dispensationalist teachings across some of the biggest colleges and campuses in the entire world. They were basically on every single college campus, and they were really powerful in the South and in California, just absolutely mad. Dispensationalism, of course, is what they referred to as this evangelical belief that the end times are coming and that the true believers have to usher in the second coming of Jesus so that we can have 7 years of basically Armageddon. And then all these Christians, these evangelicals that believe in this, get to inherit a 1,000-year Christian kingdom, a theocracy in which they'll reign over all of America or the world, depending on which branch of dispensationalism you believe in. And they'll basically get to subjugate everyone who's not a Christian like them, and they'll get to force everybody to live like them. Okay. That's the simplest way to describe it. There's a lot more. You can go and look this up if you want to look this all up. I've got links. There's tons of stuff over on Patreon, but that's essentially it. They're a death cult, okay, who believe that it's their holy duty to take over America for Jesus and sanctify the holy land of Jerusalem for the end times. Okay. That's all tied to all of this stuff. It's very crazy. It's very violent. It's very organized. And this is all happening at the same time that Gothard decided to start his campus organization, which of course turned into the IBLP. It's dangerous beliefs. All of these things are very dangerous beliefs. Go back and listen to the past episodes if you need to. And it seems to be these exact beliefs that Bill Gothard took on in 1961 when he created the organization that became the Institute of Basic Life Principles. Now, I can hear some of you raising your eyebrows at me already. That's how loud the suspicion is. You're going, Evie, come on now. Like, this is, I mean, come on. People are allowed to be Christians. This has nothing to do with that. I want to be very clear before we go any further in this episode. I've said this in past episodes and past posts, but these people, they call themselves Christians. They are not Christians. All of this information I'm going to give you today, these are from actual Christians, like Christians who are trying to warn people that these people who are aligned with the IBLP and some other organizations that are all under this thing that we're talking about, this evangelical kind of movement. These are people who have warped Christianity. They are considered by actual Christians, of which I do not consider myself, but the actual Christians that I listen to educate myself on this, to make this episode, they consider these people to be false prophets. They consider them to be incredibly dangerous. Okay. And this is what we are talking about here today. So this is not an anti-Christian episode. This is an anti-false prophets. This is an anti-cult. This is an anti alt-right. This is those things. Okay. So as we go into these beliefs, just kind of have that as your little disclaimer, because it is the beliefs of the IBLP that do make them so dangerous. So let's go through those. Let's go through some of these things. It's so ridiculous because they have all these different, like the 7 basic principles and the 7 this and the 13 this and the 5. It's like it's very confusing on purpose, but essentially on the outside, it looks like the IBLP kind of looks like your typical run-of-the-mill fundamentalist Christian organization. They like to get together, they like to have conferences, woman in the home, babies, clean the house, husband earns the money, right? Women with lots of children, long hair, a wardrobe that consists somehow entirely of denim skirts that touch the ground, which I'm assuming they make, because like where else would they get all these endless denim skirts? The men, as dorky as you could possibly imagine, worst senses of humor you could possibly imagine, usually in like some kind of short sleeve polo with a couple of buttons on it and dockers up to their belly buttons. You know the type, right? That seems harmless at first, but that's just the outside. What's on the inside of the IBLP is what makes them so sinister. And believe me, it is sinister. So the beliefs are the fundamental problem with the IBLP, and their whole system centrally seems to revolve around these 7 basic principles. Okay. Like just basic right off the top, what they show on the website. These are the 7 basic principles that they believe in. Number 1, design, how and why God made me. 2, authority, which seems to be their favorite one. It seems to be the one that they rely on the most. Authority, our response to God ordained leadership. That used to be submission, by the way. Number 3, responsibility, cleansing the conscience. Number 4, suffering. Really good. Yeah, you definitely want to get involved with a religion that has suffering as one of their core tenets, which to them apparently means responding to the hurts inflicted upon me. Number 5, ownership, properly handling material possessions. Prosperity gospel. Number 6, freedom, escaping the bondage of moral impunity, aka not going to jail when you mess with children. And number 7, success, how to fulfill our God-given purpose. Now, within these 7 basic life principles, which were all thought up by Bill Gothard, there's a special emphasis, like I said, on authority. The whole structure of the IBLP is all about authority, authority, authority. And they built that all into what they call this umbrella structure. It's known to members as the umbrellas of authority or the umbrellas of protection. Everyone in the IBLP supposedly is under someone else's authority, meaning that they are meant to submit, and they literally mean submit themselves like a slave in a lot of instances to the person who is over them. And this means total submission. That's the word they use. That is what they mean. And they mean it fucking literally. Okay. This system of submission basically goes like this. Children are at the very absolute bottom, and they draw it this way. Children are at the bottom of the pyramid. There is nobody that submits to them. There is nobody that they are the bottom of the pyramid, okay? And they submit to their mother and their father. The mother submits wholly to the father under the father's umbrella. The father submits to the church elders, and then the church elders submit to the bigger umbrella of whatever branch of the IBLP that they're in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All the way to the top. I really want to quote Yul Brynner right now. Literally everything within the system relies on this submission within the umbrellas of authority. And if something bad happens, the IBLP teaches that it happened because you stepped outside of your umbrella. So if you're a little kid and your dad smacks you across the face, well, that's your fault that your dad smacked you across the face because you were sinning. If you hadn't been sinning, your drunk father wouldn't have hit you across the face. Do you see how that kind of works? And they even go so far as to say, well, if bad stuff starts happening to you and you're for sure like, well, I haven't been sinning, well, then it must be secret sin. You've secret sinned, and it's now poked a hole in your whole family's umbrella, and now your whole family's going to suffer because of you. It's that crazy, backwards, hypocritical, convoluted system that creates a pattern of subjugation throughout the organization. It creates victimization. It creates like all kids who are harmed, abuse victims, people who get exploited, who get manipulated. They internalize it. Everything bad that happens to them is suddenly no one on the outside is accountable for it. Only they are accountable on the inside for it. It's absolutely crazy. On the most basic level, you have the complete subjugation of the children within the power structure, which is absolutely horrendous. You see so much abuse within this organization. I did not go looking for it this time, but I would not be surprised if the IBLP doesn't have its own child abuse Wikipedia page like the Mormons do, which they do, the Mormons. And it's not just the fundamentalist Mormons. No. It is the FDLS as well, have their own Wikipedia page that's just child abuse cases, like a whole Wikipedia page of court cases where children have been abused. Absolutely. There's like audio recordings. Anyway, it's the same thing over here. Children are just completely subjugated within this system. It's just horrible. And they're not people within the IBLP. That's what infuriates me. That's what makes me so angry. Like, children are essentially to this. They're kind of seen as wild animals who are meant to be broken down into little automatons that they can then project whatever they want to project onto. It is sick. It's cruel. If you watched Amazon's documentary, the 2023 documentary, Shiny Happy People, then you know what I'm talking about. Children are like inside of this IBLP. They teach this, they promote this. Children are physically beat for the smallest infraction. Dead serious. The IBLP, which relies heavily on the promoted teachings of Michael and Debbie Pearl, encourage brutal practices like blanket training and beating your kid with a rod. The blanket training especially, that's where an infant is put on a blanket and then an item that they love or that they want is put just out of reach. And then every time the infant reaches for the thing that they want, they're like either physically punished with a slap or smack, or they're scolded or whatever it is to snap their attention and make sure that they don't get the thing that they want and they don't leave the blanket. And the whole idea, they've got, if you've seen that documentary that I just mentioned, you've literally seen the women at the conference saying this. The idea is to break the spirit of the infant, so that they literally have to look to their parent for permission to fucking move or breathe or think. Let's listen to a description, actually, of blanket training from a former member who shared this in the 2023 Amazon documentary, Shiny Happy People, The Duggar Family Secrets.
Is this a true representation of blanket training?
I know that there was a particular style of child training called blanket training.
You put the kid on a blanket, probably 6-month-old, and you put something they want just outside of reach off the blanket, and when they go to reach for it, you hit them. And if they continue to reach for it, you hit them again. The idea is you're breaking the rebellious spirit they are born with.
So that makes it pretty clear, I think, how children start their lives in an IBLP family, and it doesn't really get any better from there. Children are more or less a seen and not heard element when it comes to the IBLP. They are seen as little automatons, like I said, to be programmed, conditioned into obedient, quiet little servants that will go on and continue to tithe obediently to the organization for years to come. Then there's the homeschooling element. Children in the IBLP are completely enclosed within the environment so that indoctrination can be total. They know little else other than the religious fundamentalism that is taught to them through a series of 54 booklets that detail elements of Jesus's Sermon on the Mount. Yes, I'm not even kidding you. The Duggar kids, this is what they went through. This was the school that they did. The homeschooling in the IBLP consisted of 54 pamphlets that featured different elements of Jesus's Sermon on the Mount. The only thing the IBLP claimed children needed to know in order to be successful in the real world. They literally said, everything you need to know, every piece of education that you need to know can be learned from Jesus's Sermon on the Mount. Yeah, definitely. That's definitely true. There was no mathematics, no social studies, no science, no arts, no sex education, which is especially important, which means children raised within the IBLP are essentially purposefully unequipped to function anywhere but within the IBLP and its subsequent programs. Sounds cultish, no? Like, think about it. The children, literally, where else can they go? The only education they have is the hokey stuff they've been taught by the IBLP, which are only beliefs that belong to the IBLP. These aren't beliefs that are in the Baptist church. These are not beliefs that are in your normal mainstream Catholic church, your mainstream Methodist church, your mainstream Lutheran church. They can't go anywhere else. They can only work within this organization. It's textbook cult, as we talked about in the Brittany conservatorship episode when we went through Dr. Stephen Hassan's cult model and how they get people in. This is about enclosing that information, cutting off any outside world so they can only function, reproduce within, be successful, function within this cult, right? It's crazy. And children, just like everyone else in the IBLP, are taught that the bad things that happen to them, like abuse of every nature from adults, it's their fault. Girls are taught that molestation happens to them because they've tempted adult men into lusting after them. If a man's lusted enough to touch them, then it must have been because their skirt was too short or they showed their ankles. It's for sure their fault. They've inspired lust in some way, and their mothers teach them this stuff. A truly horrific thing I found when I was digging into these assholes is that adopted children, if an IBLP family tries to adopt a child, they have to go back and do genealogical histories on them back generations and generations and generations so that the IBLP can, quote unquote, prevent generational curses from being brought down on the IBLP families who adopt them. Unbelievable. And you know what that means? They're trying to make sure that they're not black. That's what that means. When it comes to children, it's just absolutely insane. It's evil and it's wild. They are purposefully kept ignorant. They're purposefully kept sheltered so that they can basically be these like prey animals inside of a corral, and they're powerless. There's nowhere for a child to go. Even if something happens to them, who do they go to? Their authority is probably the person who's harming them, and the person above them, not a safe option probably either, as we'll see later in the episode. So yeah, again, it's just absolutely insane. It's absolutely evil. And we're not even like halfway through this yet. That's just the children. So, outside of the children, especially the girl children, who seem to have little value and little worth, again, especially the girl children, judging by the way they are treated and deprived and neglected, there are then the women within the IBLP. Now, Bill Gothard had a lot of ideas about women when he formed the IBLP as their prophet in 1961, and those beliefs are still the backbone of the organization to this very day. Even though Bill Gothard for his whole life was a bachelor, never married, never had a wife, never seemed to really even have a girlfriend. So, I don't know what the fuck he thought he was talking about women, but in the IBLP, women essentially fall under the umbrella of their husband's authority. Actually, there's no essentially about it. They do. They are property of the man who owns them. And that means exactly what you think it does. Women are their husband's fucking property. Girls are raised as property. They are raised knowing that they are property. They are told that they are property. And when they are handed off by their fathers, usually to a suitor that's chosen for them, it is seen as a transfer of property into another man's household. That's it. You can go and find old Duggar episodes of like Jim Bob taking his daughter Jill to go and give her to a suitor in Nepal that he had picked for her. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely archaic. And also, remember, these are the people who want to bomb all the brown people who they say all the brown people do this kind of stuff. So we have to bomb them. But then these hicks are in Arkansas doing this shit. You know what I mean? Hypocrites, absolute hypocrites. But I digress. A woman, a wife in the home of an IBLP family is little more than a broodmare. That's it. She's a bang maid. If you're an Always Sunny in Philadelphia fan, her job as a woman is to cook, clean, breed, and care for the breedings. That's it. And once they go past a certain point, she didn't even have to do that. She didn't even have to care for the breedings. The other children get to care for the breedings. That's it. That's what she is. If I'm telling you right now, if the IBLP could just have like a woman from, let's say, the chest down, they would do it. If they could just have an incubator fuck machine that didn't speak, didn't talk, didn't have to be fed, clothed, cared for, that's what they would have. Like, you know what it is? It is that horrific episode of X-Files where they go into the house and the mother is under the bed. It's like all the inbred incest Hills Have Eyes guys, and they've been mating with their mother, and then like I think it's Scully finds the mother under the bed and she's all like mutilated and they're just using her to like breed with. That is what the IBLP kind of idealizes as the perfect mother, limbless, happy to please, just, awful. Anyway, within the IBLP, a wife, she's not allowed to be a leader. That's like explicit. She cannot be a leader. She's not allowed to have any kind of financial independence at all whatsoever. Again, if you go back and watch Shiny Happy People, you'll hear the daughters talk about how they never got paid a cent. Jim Bob got paid all their money. Women aren't even allowed to ask for help. That was in like one of their womenhood kind of thing. Like a woman is not allowed to ask for help outside of the family unless her husband has given her express consent to talk to someone outside of the family, including her own family. Okay. Wives of the IBLP cannot even dress the way that they want to dress. Some of the core written on paper beliefs of the IBLP is that women should dress modestly in a way that pleases their husband. That's the thing. You're like, okay, dress modestly. That's fine. No. It's modestly, but it's like in these grotesque ways that their husbands order. They can even like wear makeup and stuff as long as it's what their husband wants them to look like and wants their daughters to look like. Go back and watch old episodes of the Duggars and they'll tell you the same, they say it on camera. Like one of the daughters sat on camera and goes, well, we have to have long curly hair because that's what our dad likes. And our dad likes us to have this and look this way. And so that's why we have to look. It is so deranged. It's so deranged. And I grew up in a house that had this as well. So fucking weird. It's so fucking weird. Like the women weren't allowed to cut or color. Not me. I did whatever the fuck I wanted. But the other women in part of my family weren't allowed to cut their hair or color their hair unless it was approved by the man. And like even his daughter, like it's a whole thing. It's very weird. But in the case of the IBLP, it has not gotten better in the 60 plus years that they've been around. Women are still seen as objects who must prostrate themselves as meek and mild servants to their husbands and their sons. It's wild. Have you ever wondered, like, you guys may not know this if you've not seen Shiny Happy People, but you know that voice that Michelle Duggar talks in, that insane voice that's like this, you must go to bed now. That is the ideal presentation in the IBLP. That's what they literally coach women to sound like. That's what they teach women to do. That's they tell women, this makes you more powerful to sound like Minnie Mouse. Like, it's wild. The worst belief, though, I think, around women in the IBLP is the fundamental belief that women are not allowed to deny their husbands in any way. If he wants sexual access to her body, a woman in the IBLP is required to give it to him. Like, that's it. There's no argument about it. There's no compromise about it. That's it. She's told your husband's needs are sexual and you have to meet those needs on demand whenever he wants it, no matter what. So, of course, it's no surprise then to those who have, again, watched Shiny Happy People that marriages in the IBLP are rampant with rape. There's a woman in that documentary who, for like the first 9 years, I think she said for like 9 years or something, she was raped and she didn't know that that was rape. She didn't know that that was happening. She thought sex was supposed to be violent and painful and just kind of be sprung upon you whenever the husband wanted it. She thought that's what it was because she had no sexual education, and all she'd ever been told is when your husband wants sex, give it and shut up about it, right? Horrible, 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 horrible stuff. Like, but of course, in the IBLP, that's not rape. That's just a husband exercising his needs. And that's what that kind of behavior gets normalized as. Do you see then how we start to see the patterns of the Duggars start to come through? There's no higher education for these women inside the IBLP. It's not expressly forbidden, but it is heavily, heavily, heavily discouraged. In fact, it's looked down on. Like, a woman with a higher education is like, oh, could you not get a husband? You didn't want to, you didn't have kids. Is something wrong with you? Like, what sins have you committed? From a very young age, like right out of the gate, these girls are taught that their only goal in life is to get married as young as possible and have as many children as possible. And I got to tell you, again, when you know how the Kardashians started, what their family was into, what their family was tied to, everything their family has funded throughout the decades, and then you look at the women, you kind of wonder, because it kind of looks like the Kardashians have essentially been coached to do the same thing, right? Just get married and pop out as many kids as you can. That's what matters. Don't worry about getting a college education or anything, even though you have access to everything. Just man kids. It's crazy. These evangelical fundamentalist organizations would give every woman a lobotomy if they could. I swear to God. It's just like wild. Yeah, when it comes to women, they are nothing in the IBLP. They are literally just stock. They are breeding stock, and that's it. That's it. It is a horrific set of beliefs which creates an environment set for perfect victims, just like perfect. It looks like, the more I learned about this, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a sheep breeding operation being run by wolves, right? It's like a bunch of wolves got together and were like, this hunting shit's for the birds. Why don't we just like corral them here and like teach them to like it, and then we'll just eat them, right? It's like a bunch of weak, lazy, inbred male wolves got together and created a sheep farm. It's unbelievable how evil this organization is. As horrible as all of that is, and it is indeed horrible, it's all horrible, things just don't get any better, again, when you dig deeper into this fundamentalist organization that the Duggars are central to. Because the IBLP, like so many right-wing evangelical groups, has their sights on something much, much, much more material than salvation. They genuinely believe in and are working toward a theocratic takeover of the United States. They believe all Americans, and some of them everyone in the world, should live like them. And the IBLP has branched out in a million different directions to prove it. There are multiple organizations that exist under the umbrella of the IBLP, and they exist not only to recruit new members into the cult, they also exist to harbor and force their worldview onto every single person that they can. That's literally the meaning of evangelical, right? It's people that want to hoist their religion, their Christianity onto other people. Now, at the starting level of these kind of organizations, under the organizations, you have the financial freedom seminars. I think that's kind of the catchment level. These are money saving seminars that are targeted at young Christian families for the alleged purpose of teaching them how to save money and become financially free and successful. It's how the Duggars first got involved with the IBLP in 1985 after attending one of these seminars hosted by Jim Sammons, a high up leader in the IBLP who we will mention again in just a little while. Now, the financial freedom seminars center around the IBLP's prosperity gospel teachings. You know, the more godly you are, the more God will give you money that you can, of course, tithe back to the church. The IBLP doesn't believe in borrowing money in any form, even mortgages, so they expect their members to cut coupons and lean into ultimate thriftiness, which in itself doesn't seem too bad at first. But it's the problem, right, is that they're introducing you to the prosperity gospel, which is such a honeypot for people because they're like, oh, if I just worship God harder, I'll make more money. Well, I've got a bunch of kids. Yeah, I need more money. Yeah. It's the honeypot trap. But also, once you're in the door to these financial freedom seminars, you've written down your name, you've written down your address, you've written down your contact information, baby. You're getting invites. You're getting invites to the next level, and that's where they get you. After attending one of these financial freedom seminars, you start getting invites to the next level. Financial freedom seminars are often the gateway, right? They are the door that gets you into the next level of the IBLP's darker sub-organizations, like the Basic Seminar, a multi-day convention hosted by Bill Gothard himself. It used to be, anyway, again, as we'll talk about shortly. And this multi-day convention, which they also recorded on VHS and gave out to people, focuses on the quote-unquote core curriculum of the IBLP's central beliefs and operations. Here, the Duggars would have been introduced not only to Gothard, which they did because there's tons of photos, but also to his beliefs around family dynamics, relationships, anger, bitterness, moral struggles, raising children, and stewardship of good IBLP members, which were some of the topics that they covered at these multi-day conventions, the Basic Seminar. The Basic Seminar is also where, after getting you in with prosperity gospel, they would draw you in further with the 7 core life principles that we talked about up at the top. And it was the necessary step, this Basic Seminar, to go through if you really wanted to get yourself into the inner sanctum, which was the Advanced Seminar. And the Advanced Seminar was hosted by Bill Gothard and other leaders like Jim Sammons. Yep. Jim Sammons again, the one who connected with the Duggars in that 1985 Tulsa Financial Freedom Seminar. He was one of these big teachers who would come on the stage during Advanced Seminar. The Advanced Seminar of the IBLP takes the generalities of the Basic Seminar to the next level. They start teaching you how to apply them and how the Bible says to apply them. Gothard and his other umbrella lords, again, it's multi-days, and they pull out the Bible and they're like, here's why you should strike your wife. Here's why you should strike your kids. The Bible tells you to do it. Everything is forced through a literal biblical lens. Marriage, in which women submit to men, child rearing, in which physical punishment isn't only encouraged, it's desired. This is where the cult part really starts to come into effect, and only alumni of the Basic Seminar can receive an invite into the Advanced Seminar. So you see how they start building up the anticipation and the reward and the inner sanctums and the competition and the FOMO. It's really textbook cult behavior. Outside of the Basic Seminar and the Advanced Seminar, the IBLP has groups like Journey to the Heart. And I looked up Journey to the Heart, and it's described as a group for young men and women to learn about their beliefs and yada, 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 yada. I think that, this is obviously like further indoctrination, right? This is obviously a place to get young adults and really hammer down like the really twisted and warped beliefs about gender and marriage and yada, yada, yada. But I also think it's probably a place to get young men and women to meet each other as quickly as possible so that we can get the hormones going. Let's get them met. Let's get them married. Let's get them pumping out kids before they can get exposed to the outside world and realize that this is all a hokey bunch of shit. So that's Journey to the Heart. And that's the last time you're going to hear about women, because there's nothing else for women. Nothing else. Nothing else. Everything we're about to talk about from here on out, it's all for the men of the IBLP. So after Journey to the Heart, you have the Leadership Training Corps, or the LTC, right? Because the IBLP loves a fucking acronym. This is a leadership program, this Leadership Training Corps, aimed specifically at young men only. And it's all about bringing them into the leadership of the church. It's all about getting them onto their own umbrella. Okay. This is how you move up. You want to become like a pastor. You want power in the church. You go through this Leadership Training Corps, which is all you'll have the education for if you've been a part of the IBLP homeschool program. The most concerning for me personally of all these like sub organizations is a group called Alert, who the IBLP really are trying not to advertise anymore. They're trying to advertise a watered down cadet program, which is like a father-son weekend in the woods. But no. They have a program. The IBLP has a program called Alert, and it is a literal militia. Okay. It's a militia that is designed and centered around the group's evangelical beliefs in the end times. It is a militia to fight at the end times against whoever they decide is the enemy. That's not scary at all, is it? Is it? Alert is yet another acronym, this time for Air Land Emergency Rescue Team, and is essentially like I said, a militia training program. It's the same as, a few years ago, well, actually, it was probably 2016, almost, 10 years ago now, a decade ago, when all those scary Mormon militias, like out in Utah, were getting exposed, and people were like, oh my God, this is pretty scary. This is the same thing. It's young men sent away for weeks at a time to play army man for God in the woods in Texas. The academy ranges from basic training, which is essentially godly Boy Scouts. It's not that bad. It's just like go out in the woods and eat a can of beans over a fire kind of thing. But then it goes all the way up to advanced training. I read advanced training. I was like, why is the church offering this? Advanced training where quote unquote cadets, okay. They try to say, we're not a militia. Cadets. Why are you calling them cadets? They can receive aviation training, construction training, diving training, fire academy, technical rescue, emergency medical technician training, or something just called missions. Whatever the fuck that is. I don't know why God needs you doing military missions, but it's a pretty scary concept if you're someone who's read through that declassified document that I shared in that bonus episode about Lou Taylor and the Kardashians. Because I mean, these militias, these Christian militias, look, militias are formed for a specific reason. Okay. You don't put a gun in somebody's hand and teach them to like kill and work together on secret covert missions because you want to go and have a kumbaya friendly fire. That's not what the intent and purpose is. And the intent and purpose is sure not fucking read the Bible, no matter what they try to justify it with. Okay. And it's certainly not father-son bonding as the organization claims. All of these sub organizations, of course, they all feed back. It all feeds back into the honeycomb that is that big umbrella, that big hive of the IBLP. And I think it's important to note, as you can see on the IBLP's Wikipedia page, which they definitely have a hand in because there's so much stuff that's left out on that page. There are no correlating development programs, as I said, for women in the organization. None. There's no leadership programs. There's no development programs. They don't even seem to have a Susie Homemaker program for them. It's like nothing. It's like after you're 16, bitch, you better be having babies. There's no expectations after that. And there's certainly no cadet or Girl Scouts outdoor activities, sports like activities for women. So again, just reinforces what we already know, right? That they're a bunch of sexist, misogynist, trash pigs. Now, we're going to move on to a really crazy twist, but before we do that, I'd be remiss here without mentioning the blatant racism that's at the core of the IBLP's beliefs. This was really skipped out, I think quite a bit. I think they basically glossed over this part in Shiny Happy People. But as I was prepping for this episode, I was scouring through dozens of the organization's own blog posts and their belief statements and all this. They've got so much shit to wade through on their website, right? All this blag. And it became clear to me by the time I got into the second, I think, blog post or essay or article or whatever it was, that they're racist. Like super racist. Time and time again, there's essentially reference to what they call the darkness of the uncivilized world. You go and read anything on history, which is just fucking laughable. There's this idea that they preach and push over and over and over and over and over again that anyone who isn't a Christian is a heathen. And that's the kind of words that they use, right? Is that kind of thing. And on the historical side, they preach that minorities basically should be thankful that Christians came to colonize them because the Christians brought civilization to them. That is racism. It's that insidious fucking racism. It shows up time and time and time and time and time. And they always call it the darkness, which they mean black and brown people. You go and watch videos, you might find one half black person in the audience if you're lucky. And that's at the heart of what they do. Their members conduct missions, remember, around the world. If you used to watch the Duggars, you know that some of the daughters were like doing mission work for months and months and months at a time out of the country. The family themselves went and did mission work in different parts of the world. And when they do this, the IBLP markets it as just like Pat Robertson did when he was down spying in Honduras. They market it as, no, like we're helping people. We're bringing food. We're bringing this. No, they're not. No, they're not. They wouldn't talk about black and brown people the way they talk about people. They're there to colonize. They're not there to help. They're there to colonize people that they see as quote unquote heathens and bring them into subjugation beneath the IBLP fold. So anyone who's listening to this who might still be an active part of the IBLP and thinking, oh, no, mission work's good. Go fuck yourselves. That's colonization. Your organization's racist and it's trash. Now, here's where things get a little ooky spooky in the Duggar story, okay? With the IBLP and the Duggars. Are you ready? It's kind of crazy and it's fucking wild. There is a weird distant connection between the Kardashian family and the Duggars and this IBLP organization. It's distant, but it is there and it is so weird. Let me explain. So Bill Gothard and the Duggars, they're not unique. Although the organization of the IBLP can trace its roots back to 1961, they, again, not original. They're not that new. That's because when you break down the fundamental beliefs of the IBLP, when you listen to the language the Duggars use, when you trace the history of the umbrella system, it actually leads you back to one place and one place only, and that is the shepherding movement. Now, I know you're all rolling your eyes again at this point. I know. Oh my God, are you going to tell us about another evangelical cult? Nope, don't have to, because we've already talked about this wacky branch of bastardized cult Christianity. Because the shepherding movement, which is a group actually that's mentioned in declassified CIA files as a militant right-wing evangelical movement, the shepherding movement can trace its roots back to, drum roll. I like, what am I going to do? Am I going to insert a drum roll? No, I'm way too lazy to add that sound effect. It comes back to William Branham. I kid you not. So the shepherding movement is actually a part of Latter Rain, which was a part of William Branham's ministry. Okay. The shepherding movement was started originally by the quote unquote 5 shepherds of Fort Lauderdale. That's how you know it's quality. You know, it's definitely God, right? Because they did it in Fort Lauderdale. And it was these 5 preachers. They were all part of this Latter Rain movement, which had spiraled off from William Branham's teachings. And they decided we need something new that actually represents our crazy, wacky beliefs. And so they got together in Fort Lauderdale and they figured it out. And the scheme was simple: a hierarchy of shepherds and a stable of sheep beneath them. It's exactly the same as the umbrella hierarchy we just talked about with the IBLP. Every church has a series of shepherds that parishioners report up to. The shepherds of that church report to their higher ups. If you're inside the family unit, the kids are the sheep, the parents are the shepherds, the dad's the head shepherd, yada, 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 right? We get it. We got it. We're good. So the shepherding movement is built on the Latter Rain beliefs, which we talked about in the Kardashian series and in my Patreon essays on William Branham. So you can go over there if you need all that. But it's very dangerous. Latter Rain is one of the more dangerous evangelical movements. It's this, again, death cult fanatic branch where they're seeking to bring about oblivion so they can take control of the earth. It's seriously like wicked delusional stuff. And it's tied to what's going on in the Middle East at the moment as well. It's also tied to the NAR and the Seven Mountains Mandate. Elements of the evangelical movement as well. Elements which we have also talked about in relation to who? Lou Taylor, the Kardashians, and even Katy Perry's parents. And all of that, again, comes back in part to William Branham, who, again, he was one of the men who established the Latter Rain movement. While he was receiving Kardashian money and funding to grow and build and explode his ministry, he went up to Canada and he was in this place called Sharon Orphanage where he was with these other ministers, and they essentially came up with the latter rain theology. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to william-branham.org, and they've got great videos that break it all down. But here's the wildest part, okay? Yeah, the Kardashians were funding William Branham. William Branham created this theology, this ideology that now Bill Gothard is now teaching. Okay, fine. But here's the wildest part. In 1987, the Covert Action Bulletin posted a huge 72-page report on a dangerous right-wing evangelical movement that was threatening to take over the U.S. government. I kid you not. This is in the CIA reading room. You can go read it. The report is essentially a series of researched and cited essays which outline the concentrated and organized effort of extremist Christian organizations to take over the U.S. and subjugate U.S. citizens to their will. Underlining all of it was a sincere belief that a nuclear war involving Israel would trigger the second coming of Christ and a new Christian kingdom that would inherit the earth for 1,000 years. It's about to get crazier. Are you ready? Within this 72-page bulletin, which I've got it, it's linked in the bonus episode. I'll try to put it in the links for the description of this, but it's over on Patreon. But within this 72-page bulletin, the shepherding movement specifically is detailed as a dangerous organization with treasonous intent toward the United States. And two of Bill Gothard's mentors are not only mentioned, they're photographed in this bad boy. Ern Baxter and Bob Mumford, who were two of those 5 shepherds from Fort Lauderdale, are in this 72-page bulletin about a covert right-wing evangelical takeover. I kid you not. And also mentioned within this same 72-page warning document about a far-right evangelical movement, Demos Shakarian, who is also, he has a whole write-up about him, and he's also photographed inside of this 72-page declassified document. And Demos Shakarian, if you don't remember, is Kim Kardashian's great uncle. Immediately after describing the shepherding movement, the bulletin describes the great length that Shakarian's evangelical organization, the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship International, has gone to court the highest levels of the U.S. military. By the time this thing was put out in 1987, this Kardashian, Shakarian linked organization, they had been given 2 prayer rooms inside of the Pentagon. Not even kidding. Again, go listen to that bonus episode about Lou Taylor and the Kardashians if you need to. This document, this bulletin, truly crazy. This declassified document. What's even more wild is that it reveals the true intentions of organizations like the shepherding movement. And, you know, you have to think if the IBLP is copied off for the shepherding movement, and the shepherding movement has been revealed to have this ultimate goal of like taking over the US and forcing everyone to be Christians and punishing anyone who's not, like, then what do we think the true intentions would be of the Duggars and the IBLP? You know what I mean? It's not good. It's not good. So if you look at that within the complete picture, the Duggars start to make a lot more sense, don't they? If nothing else, Jim Bob's political aspirations as a member of such an organization should become a lot more clear to the naked eye. Because when the Duggars rocketed to reality television fame in the mid-2000s, they became the perfect walking billboard for the IBLP and the mass manipulator that is Bill Gothard. What had been little more than a quiet shadow hovering in the background of American society and politics was suddenly central to the world stage. Jim Bob, Michelle, and their brood of seemingly perfectly behaved children wowed Americans, the foolish ones anyway. People in my home were not fooled. Like right away, everyone in my home was like, no, this is off. This is bad. The idea of the fundamentalist American to the ones who were sucked in suddenly seemed idyllic. Look at all that quality family time they had. Look how well behaved their children were on camera. Why, that wasn't weird. That was sweet, wasn't it? It was downright nostalgic, wasn't it? The homeliness of the Duggars mainlined Americans that were becoming more stressed under modernizing times and financial recessions. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Doesn't that feel quaint and comfy? Come home, have like the wife and the dinner and the kids and everybody's like, yay, this is great. And all eating around the same table and all that kind of nonsense. It's a temptation for people. It's a temptation. But those people who got sucked in, who fell for it, they didn't see all the beliefs beneath the surface, especially those about women and children, that in enabled and empowered such a romantic delusion. They didn't see the blanket training, the slut shaming, the beatings that got those children to such a point of broken and malleable spirit. The success of the Duggars in many ways legitimized Bill Gothard and his teachings. They weren't really fringe anymore. They were legitimate contenders as a validated way of life. The Duggars reinforced the call of this is our life and we have a right to live our lives the way we want to in America, which is something they don't believe should apply to others, only them. All of this led in part to the platforming of other families within the fold, like the Plaths of Welcome to Plathville, which is just, you can go and watch them now. Their show somehow is still on the air, I guess, because all their kids are adults pretty much. But you can go and watch them now descend into drunken brawls as they stumble their way through an endless parade of disastrous and failed interpersonal relationships. The Duggars became poster children for the IBLP, and with their popularity and the cash that came with it meant some serious power, because remember, the Duggars were being paid between $25K and $45K per episode, and 10% of that was going back to the IBLP as a tithe minimum. So this would undoubtedly have been a part of Jim Bob's 2019 decision to run for the Arkansas Senate. What better way to advance the designs of your evangelical organization than getting into a place of power where you can strike down abortion laws and make it harder for Black people to vote? It followed the behaviors detailed in that 1987 declassified CIA document I just told you about that talked about the shepherding movement and their attempts to take over the government. Was Jim Bob aiming to help institute a fundamentalist theocracy in the United States? For me personally, as my personal opinion, all signs point to yes. Michelle, of course, took to the phones during this time to warn constituents about the dangers of gay people, that trans people were coming for your bathrooms and your rights, so you better vote Republican so you can stop the big gay scourge. I'm not kidding. She left like anti-gay campaign mail. That's like what she did on the phone. She's just trash. With all this in mind, then, it's not hard to see how the Duggars became a family that produced not one, but two allegedly pedophilic child abusers in their ranks. These kinds of behaviors, when you see people act like this kind of stuff is wildly popular in these circles of high control religion meets authority obsessed misogynists. As we already broke down, it creates the perfect environment to cultivate victims. A heady mixture of Christian narcissism mixed in a volatile environment of ultimate male supremacy. Boom, there you go. You got yourself a real mixture for disaster. And it echoes in many ways the elaborate web of the elites who ran around in, who dabbled in the Epstein trafficking ring, wanton abuse of women and children with the justification that those at the top of the pyramid have a fundamental right to objectify and subjugate anyone that they want to on the bottom of the pyramid because, hey, why not? The structure of the IBLP and the way they encourage the structuring of families is a preview of the world they want to see for the rest of America. One man, a prophet, at the top, dictating to a sea of disciples beneath him. Any whim they have, any notion becomes law, and those under their protection, well, their job is to submit. Men are above all reproach or question within the IBLP, and they are designed that way because the man who started the IBLP, a man who has been photographed with the Duggar family a literal countless number of times, was in fact a predator himself. Although Bill Gothard's followers raised him up as a prophet, the only one among them who could receive messages directly from God and the only person who could interpret them, Bill Gothard was actually, I know this is going to surprise you guys, he was a man, a weak one. A very, very weak one. And that truth started to come out in 2012 when his true nature was finally revealed to the entire world. A nature that actually, interestingly, sounds similar to the natures of some of the people in the Duggar family. It started first in whispers. Bill Gothard, the unmarried leader of the IBLP, this man who was like, you have to get married. This is how you have to do a marriage. This is how you have to raise a family. He had never done any of those things ever. It turns out in 2012, people start whispering that he's grooming and taking advantage of girls and women in his organization. And it wasn't exactly far-fetched, right? Because years earlier, I think it was like in the 70s maybe or the 80s, his brother had been forced out of the organization basically for the same behavior. So in 2014, when the whispers turned into a maelstrom on the website Recovering Grace, all hell broke loose, right? Bombshell stories from survivors of the IBLP, specifically survivors of Bill Gothard, came forward. Men and women alike came forward with stories that detailed decades of physical and sexual abuse that spanned all the way back into the 1970s. Bill Gothard was central to these accusations, with dozens and dozens of women coming forward to accuse him of everything from coercion to outright rape. The IBLP forced Gothard to step down amid a quote-unquote internal investigation, but later came out and said that they found no evidence of criminal activity. Gothard had, the Internal Review Board said, been found guilty of sin, and he had had some indecent behaviors, but he had not committed any crimes whatsoever. No, not this sicko at all. That's like, anyway, gonna calm down. I'm gonna calm down. But they asked him to leave. Essentially, the IBLP said, right, he committed sin. We don't see crime, so we're gonna kick him out. So they asked him to leave, and they said he can't come back. That's it. You're no longer head of the flock. You're out. Now, he should have been in prison, but that didn't happen. There was little justice outside of what happened in 2016, which was a major, major lawsuit. 10 women joined together to file the lawsuit, which outlined severe allegations of rape, molestation, and a whole system inside of the IBLP that was designed to cover it all up and protect Gothard. The Christian organization apparently knew that its leader was what its leader was doing to underage girls and to women. Underage girls are just girls. The victims, like they outlined everything. They explained who saw what, who saw where, like the whole thing. And sadly, the lawsuit continues to this day. So Bill Gothard was a predator, a prolific predator, and he did it openly inside of a Christian. This is why I told you guys in that little disclaimer, these people call themselves Christians. They're not. Inside of an organization that shielded him from accountability, and it's still shielding him from accountability to this day, right? No, he's not the head of the church anymore, but I guarantee you they still pay him money, number one. Number two, he's not in jail. He's not in prison for raping and molesting children. Okay, so, they are still protecting him. And within that, you kind of have to step back and ask yourself, like, what kind of people would shield someone like that? Like, why does Jim Bob want to be a part of an organization that doesn't send a man like that to prison? Is there perhaps other predators inside the organization that are protecting Gothard? Is that so hard to imagine in an environment where the men fundamentally believe that women are only there for sex and procreation? And what would stop them from thinking the same thing about girl children? There's nothing in their religion that would stop them from also abusing girl children. And if we can't imagine that Bill Gothard is a predator, right, which you can go to Recovering Grace, the website Recovering Grace, if you really need to immerse yourself in those horror stories. But if we can imagine that Bill Gothard is guilty of all of those things, if you were to just imagine it, and you were to imagine that he's also surrounded by other predators, then is it that hard to believe that this is where the Duggar boys learned their own predilections? Or at the very least, is it hard to believe that maybe that's where they learned it was okay to indulge themselves on the people that they had power over? Because after all, the Duggars are now considered to be among the highest ranks of the IBLP, and they have been for a long time. Remember, they've been photographed with Gothard so many times. They've been inside all of this advanced training, advanced like the Duggars are on the inside of this, right? Former members claim that Jim Bob Duggar and his wife Michelle are now the top spot now that Gothard's been pushed out. They said that he's the head now. So I mean, it's interesting to me. It's interesting that Jim Bob is considered to hold this new role when his second son now, the second son out of his brood, just this year in 2026, was arrested for the molestation of a child. It's just odd, isn't it? It's odd that a molester was forced out of an organization only to be replaced by someone who also allegedly has molesters around them. It's odd to me. It's an odd choice. And, honestly, if one didn't know better, one might actually think it's like almost some kind of a requirement to get into some kind of a club or something. Like one might genuinely, if you were crazy, one might think that, in an environment in which sex is made into this really horrific, big, secret, awful, taboo thing, and then women and children are subjugated, it almost creates the perfect environment for unchecked abuse. It's odd, isn't it? Looking from the outside in, it's hard not to see the IBLP as an environment for predators by predators. The whole wolves tending a flock of sheep scenario I set up for you a little earlier. But here's what's really scary. These monsters, these predators have their eyes set on taking physical and political power over us, over me, over you, over all of us. They have political aspirations they are so confident of that they'll set up whole political campaigns while their sons are on trial for CSAM. I'm looking at you, Jim Bob. I remember it wasn't just Jim Bob and Michelle who were tinkering at the political wheels. Josh Duggar, before his 2019 arrest for downloading what was labeled as sadistic CSAM of 18-month-old children being abused, he was working, getting paid actual money by the fucking Family Research Council. And the FRC, which again, evangelicals love themselves a little abbreviation, don't they? The FRC provides funding for conservative political causes, specifically anti-abortion and anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. They love getting reproductive rights taken away from women, and they really love committing as much harm as possible against the LGBTQ community. And those, like, whose interests do you think Josh Duggar was chasing down while he was working for this organization in the years after the first Trump presidency? Whose interests do you think he was chasing down? Yeah. At the very minimum, the IBLP, those women-hating, children-hating, death cult evangelicals. He was pushing forward politicians and laws that believed in their lunatic, middle-aged beliefs, right? Denim skirts for everybody. That's who these people are. That's what they do with the money that you give them when you tune into their seemingly harmless television shows. Well, I don't buy anything they make. I don't read their books. I don't listen to their music. You don't have to. You don't have to actually go and literally purchase something with the Duggar name on it. Josh Duggar didn't make the millions that got him into Christian lobbying because we bought his books. He got it because you and I sat in front of a television screen so much that advertisers paid him millions. The Duggars, the evangelical right, and this is in that document. This is literally mentioned in the CIA declassified files. The evangelical right is literally mentioned as having, in the 80s, a stranglehold and almost complete control over American media all the way back in the 80s. They were pulling the strings all the way back then and making money off of your attention. They don't need you to pull out your pockets. They just need you to pull out your phone, your laptop, or your tablet, sit down, shut up, and watch. And that's the real danger. By tuning in, we give them money and the power to subjugate us. By giving them a platform to launch their bigoted, harmful beliefs off of, we enable more women to be abused, more children to be exploited. We give them what they want when we don't light up the pitchforks and run them out of town like the evil motherfuckers that they are. Make no mistake about it. The Duggars are a thermometer for the far-right evangelical movement in America. Their acceptance, their support, or even their lack of it is a signal to their organizations behind them. Signals of what to change, what to adjust, and what weaknesses in the American people they can exploit next. They don't get better when monsters like Bill Gothard or Josh and Joe Duggar are removed, right? These organizations that have fundamentally evil, fucking twisted, backwards beliefs, they don't get better. They close ranks and they get better at hiding the abuse. Zero acceptance is the only policy, to my personal opinion, that can apply to extremist organizations like this. By giving them acceptance, by allowing abuse to be perpetrated like it's some kind of right that they have behind this like veneer of false Christianity. Again, these are not real Christians. I'm calling them Christians. They're fake Christians. We legitimize what cannot and should not be legitimized when we platform these people. We become enablers of the abuse, enablers of the destruction, like of these death cults, these death cult obsessed narcissists who live in service every day, not to God, but to their own egos. Michelle and Jim Bob didn't pop out 20 kids in God's honor. If they had done that, they would have had like maybe 5 kids that they could actually care for and have caring relationships with. They popped out 20 kids because their egos wanted them to pop out 19, 20 kids so that they could keep getting attention. Michelle wanted to pop out 20 kids because she likes people looking at her and going, oh, 20 kids, that's amazing. How did you do that? That's crazy. That's wild. I could never. That's the only thing that makes her exceptional, is that she laid on her back enough to pop out 20 kids. That's it. It's ego. It's narcissism. And again, don't make this mistake either. While the Duggars are a thermometer to the alt-right evangelicals, they are a preview for you and I, a preview of what these people will force and demand if they get their hands on any more power, a preview of what will come for women, for children, and God forbid minorities if these historically illiterate inbred hicks ever get the full keys to the kingdom that they seek to bring about. The violent ways in which they beat and break the spirits of their children, well, that's no different than federal agents stalking citizens and non-citizens on the streets. It's no different than the protesters who are brutalized and arrested for stepping outside of their designated protest areas. The IBLP is blanket training America, but we aren't infants. We are adult human beings that have the right and the ability to reject fully this path that we know to be full of harm and degradation. You need to understand something. These people are Lou Taylor. They are the Kardashians. They are Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. All those loony birds that think they are working for some second coming kingdom, a kingdom which they believe they will get unfettered access to and control of. They're already on top of the pyramid. Short of eating dead babies in public, there's nothing else that they could do. So ask yourself, why do they want more? Why do they want an Armageddon and a new kingdom on the other side? Because they want the one thing that they don't have yet. You, me, our freedom of choice, our joy, our happiness. They want that taken away from us. They want us to have only what they give us because they are power hungry and empty black holes who have given up their humanity, their empathy for narcissism. They seek to fill what cannot be filled because they have lost what makes them human. And they seek to take our humanity from us too, but we can stop it. Okay. None of this has to come to pass. We can educate ourselves and arm ourselves with the educational tools needed to keep our families and our communities safe from medieval Christian narcissists. We can form up a Frankenstein brain mob and run these losers out of town, but we have to stop, root ourselves in reality, and take a good look at who and what people like the Duggars really are first, because they're not just some silly reality television show. I need you guys to understand that. If you haven't understood anything else in this episode, all of these things, keeping up with the Kardashians, 19 kids and counting, it's all money, and money is power to these people. These people, even though they seem like stupid characters on TV, they are actually stupid human beings in real life who give their real life money to other really stupid, evil people. Those people then go on to do really stupid and harmful stuff. And that's what you have to be aware of. That's why you have to educate yourself and know when and how to spot these losers when you find them in the wild. So before we close out the episode for today, here are a few quick tips and some resources that can help you identify people who are part of these dangerous evangelical alt-right cults, like the IBLP, the one the Duggars promote. Number one, look for language. These dangerous evangelicals like to use the same language, specifically the words non-denominational, kingdom, and harvest. These terms relate back mostly to Revelation scripture, references and focuses on the end times, and this evangelical belief in bringing it to fruition for the purpose of the millennial kingdom they hope to turn America into. The word non-denominational specifically infers a deviation from accepted Christian doctrine, whether it's, anything like Christian, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, whatever it is. It means for some reason they are teaching something that is not accepted in these mainstream churches, and you need to question why that is. Other words to look out for: apostles, prophet, disciples, faith healing, hand healing, like all of that kind of stuff. Number two, mixing in politics. Churches with an NAR shepherding movement are often very vocally outspoken about politics and will direct their followers to vote for specific candidates who will, of course, be the alt-right leaning candidates. They may also force church members to campaign or to vote for specific candidates. So if you're inside of a church, which you suddenly feel has become very, 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 very political, short of like, we have to protect our neighbors, if it turns into we got to punish people and like go after people and prosecute people, if it becomes this like, we're going to do politics to harm others, you need to stop, step, take a look, and think, who am I listening to? Where is their message coming from? And number three, for me, the biggest tell, bastardizing of Christianity. The biggest tell that you're dealing with one of these dangerous evangelical churches is the twisting of actual scripture. Prosperity gospel is a big sign, preaching that the richer you are, the closer to God you are, and that the more involved with God you are, the richer you'll become. That's a complete bastardization of scripture. That's like the opposite of what Jesus taught. He literally said it would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. He literally said that. So allegedly, if he was real, which I don't think. Anyway, celebrity megachurches like Hillsong, Zoe, and Church Home preach these same doctrines, okay, which are directly against the core doctrine of Christianity. Especially if you say that you're a Christian, which means a follower of Jesus, then according to your own book, Jesus said, nuh-uh. Don't do it. And he like went and wrecked the temple. Also with these bastardized beliefs, you'll find belief in speaking in tongues, faith healing, possession of the Holy Spirit, and these really other extremist beliefs like anti-medicine, anti-vaccine, this idea that no, like we'll just all come pray and put hands on you and that will cure the cancer. You don't need a doctor. Stuff like that. You need to look out for that. Now, there are some great resources out there if you want to learn more about all these groups and how they all tie and work together. One is william-branham.org. It's a site that goes deep into the origins and teachings of William Branham, who, again, I've talked about in past episodes, and talks about his cult, The Message, which broke off and splintered into like 1,000 other little religious groups, which go all the way down into Chile with Colonia Dignidad, which was a Nazi camp. The author and researcher of that website, absolutely amazing. I believe his name is John Arthur Collins. Just brilliant. He's got videos, he's got podcasts, he's got essays, just so much good stuff. And he's recently updated the site to make it much more accessible and searchable. So please go over to william-branham.org if you want to learn more about how the NAR found its feet, how the Latter Rain movement came from William Branham, and all of that good stuff. You can also go to narconnections.wordpress.com if you want a really comprehensive list of the churches linked to this network that is often referred to as the, and I'm not kidding, Christian Taliban. The researcher on narconnections.wordpress.com has done a great job going through thousands of pastors and churches to document the ones that are teaching false Christian doctrine, like the Duggars and the IBLP do. And this is a Christian who runs this website. This is a practicing, self-professed Christian who is trying to do the work of stopping false doctrine. Now, there are a lot of other great sites and books. Specifically, I would recommend to go and check out Dr. Stephen Hassan. He does The Cult of Trump. He's also on TikTok and has a podcast. So check him out. He talks about how cults do mind control. Absolutely brilliant. And he's talked about William Branham in the past, and specifically about the evangelical cults that have made a Trump presidency possible. There's so much good stuff out there, and it's more important than ever that you are armed with the knowledge to take these people on, because believe me, you're going to have to take them on. They are using every instrument at their disposal to take control over your life. So why would you not use every instrument at your disposal to protect your freedom and ensure that these people aren't able to take over your life? And that's it. That's this series on the Duggars and who is really behind them. They aren't just some sideshow for the average American to laugh at. They're actually a really sinister representation of the direction America is taking if we don't get serious about our very real and precious freedoms as human beings. They're a thermometer. The Duggars are a barometer, a weather gauge, and in a sense, a preview of what's in store, the way the wind is blowing for the American people. And so it's up to you and I to decide what chapter the Duggars and people like them get to write next. But make no mistake about it, the Duggars are entrenched in a central part of the evangelical machine that's coming for you and for me, and it's that same machine that has left thousands, if not millions, of victims in its wake. Just wait until you and I talk about Pat Robertson in Honduras. That's not a downer of an ender, by the way. It's pure optimism, because we can stop this. Okay, we do have the option to stop this, but we can't do it without knowledge and without seeing these people as the narcissists that they are and reacting accordingly. Because that's it. At the end of the day, it's narcissism, 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 narcissism. So whatever you do, stop giving them the type of attention that they crave, the kind of supply that they crave, that they can funnel into their false Christian cults. And yeah, that's it. The Duggars and the IBLP. That's all I have to say on that. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you'll go away and go through some of those resources I recommended. I'll link a few of them in the episode description, but a lot of them you can actually find over on my Patreon, where I have a lot of deep dives about William Branham and the evangelical right. It's at patreon.com/scandalqueens. That's where you want to go if you want even more of this podcast. You get bonus episodes, early episodes, and weekly deep dives down all the rabbit holes that I'm currently lost on, which includes, if you've seen on TikTok, my like psychedelic revolution stuff, a bunch of my research is there on Patreon. I've also got a whole collection of Kardashian research into this like alt-right evangelical stuff. It's a lot of stuff. So patreon.com/scandalqueens if you want to get even more of this juicy goodness. If society and pop culture breakdowns aren't really your thing, then you can head over to Substack, where I put my NLP and psychology diplomas to good use, with weekly guides and essays on narcissism, relationships, mental health, basically everything human psyche. So if you want that, you go to thereallybjohnson.substack.com. For everything else, you can follow me on social media at thereallybjohnson, everywhere that it matters. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I think those are basically somehow the only three that I really use anymore these days. And last but not least, if you loved this episode or you learned something, head over to Apple or Spotify and leave a quick 5-star review. It just helps me get the ratings up, and it helps me get other weirdos to find me. So it means a heck of a lot. It only takes 2 minutes. Best part, free. And every time I see it, I think I love love that person forever. So that's it. That's all the fun of this episode of Scandal Queens. I'll be back next week with another super fun episode. It will actually be fun because this shit's too heavy. I need a break. I need a alphabet break. I need an evangelical break. I need a break from all this. So be back next week with a super fun episode to wash the sour taste of evangelical out of my mouth. So until then, hopefully you will join me for that. But until then, until next week, everyone else, keep your secrets close and your receipts closer. Stay scandalous, queens. Bye-bye.